Hello, my dears, and welcome to this episode of Moms Who Poll. Today, I'm going to be sitting down and talking with Elisa, or as you can find her on the social media, Yummy Stardust. Elisa started her pole journey in 2012. She is Los Angeles based and did not expect where pole would take her. Since that time, she has performed in a number of shows, competed, and placed first in PSO's inaugural After Dark competition. She has visited 32 studios throughout the US and acquired the long-standing United Pole Artists page with a friend to use as a platform to promote diversity, representation, and visuality for the entire pole community while also balancing a full-time career, co-parenting her amazing 14 and 12-year-olds, and dating. Quote, being a pole dancer makes me a better mama, and being a mama makes me a better pole dancer. Well said, Elisa. I cannot wait for you all to hear what we have to talk about today. Okay, cool. All right. Hi, Elisa. Welcome to this, I don't know, channel. Thank you so much for chatting with me today. So you got into pole dancing 10 years ago?
Yes, it's 10 years in October. I just celebrated my 10-year anniversary.
Congratulations. Happy pole
Thank
anniversary.
you. Thank you.
So what got you into pole dancing?
I think everybody has like this one definitive thing that was like, oh, I gotta go do this. I really don't. I think it was a little mixture of a lot of things going on in my life at the time. Like, I was tired of doing the exercise, just going to the gym and Pilates and doing that kind of thing. And I love dance. I had been trying every dance class you can think of in my adult years. I wasn't allowed to dance when I was a kid. My parents weren't for that, so they didn't sign me up for dance classes. So in adulthood, I was trying everything you could think of, right? And also to the place where I was 34, had two children under the age of 4. I'd been married for a couple of years. I walked by a pole dance studio and I was like, this is interesting, but I didn't sign up right away. And also too, just, having grown up in, LA in the 80s and, just remembering, the girls, Motley Crue video, that was like, oh my God, that looks like so much fun. Look at these women, and now when I watch that video, I'm like, they're wearing like street pumps. They weren't even wearing like stripper heels or anything, but like having that, I guess, influence, because like I feel like in the 80s, strip clubs in LA were just like everybody knew about them. It wasn't like a hush hush thing. So all those things mixed in together. Um, I signed up for a pole class. I didn't tell anyone, not even my husband at the time. We're now divorced, but I didn't even tell him. And I walked in, and that was it. 10 years later, here I am. Never walked out.
That's amazing. So there was never there was never a point in your life after you started pole where you were like, no, I'm going to take a break. I can't do this. There was never that point for you.
No, I think like I've come to realize that pole or something that's part of your life is almost like a relationship. And pole is a relationship for me too. There's times where you're like, F this, why am I still here? And then there's other times when you're like, I am so in love. This is where I belong. To like, this is more work than it is fun. To I cannot imagine anywhere where where I would rather be, So to me, that's what pole is. There's been times when I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm getting too old for this, or this isn't for me anymore. I don't have the time or the patience to put in the practice to get better. Just, insecurities, of course, they start, they still rear up. Um, but, and then of course being a mom, you know, your time gets taken up and it's like, do I really want to spend the money and time in this that's just for me? But every time that happens, I come back to it. Every time I'm like, I'm done with it. Like somewhere, something in my heart says, no, you're not, and I come back.
I know I feel like every time there's something that goes on in my children's lives that is not like, it's not like the usual where like there's a problem of some kind. In my head, I always go to, that's it, I'm quitting pole. I'm going to quit pole and I'm just going to like dedicate myself to this problem that's going on in my children's lives. And then I rationally come to my senses and I'm like, no, I am a good mom because I have this time for myself. Like,
Yes.
it's not about pouring from an empty cup, right? It's about pouring from a cup that's overflowing. You have to fill your cup in order to give to others. And I feel like that's the hardest part for, moms, especially when you're looking at something like pole and you go like, and you don't go in right away. You don't go into the studio right away because you think, at least for me, like, I don't know if I can get that time away from my kids.
Mhm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, when it comes, like, I have very active children. My son plays baseball. He's in high school. He's a high school freshman. He's played baseball just as long as he could. As soon as he could be signed up, he wanted to be signed up. And that's a year-round activity now. There's no seasons and youth activities. My daughter dances, and
Oh
that's
my
year-round. Yeah.
God.
And like she does Irish dance and they have competitions year round. There's no seasons for that. And so, there's been times when I miss baseball games. There's been times where I have to choose, do I go to her competition or I already had something planned, like a show planned or an event planned. And there is that guilt. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad mom. Look at me, I'm doing this. Um, and interesting enough, like I think, in the pole community, we're very free, we're very open. Obviously there's a sensual side to it, clearly there's a sexualized side to it. And I find it interesting, like my experience has been that I've been slut shamed more as a mom than being a woman, being my age, uh just in general, just because we slut shame women all the time. Body size, anything like that. I've been more mom slut shamed than any other kind of thing that would be a put down, you know?
Right. Because the minute you work in service of the next generation, apparently you give up all rights to be able to determine who you are as a person. Uh,
Right.
it's it's incredibly sad because, well, uh, there's this person I know who decided to tell all the people I live nearby that I have a pole in my house.
Mm,
And I don't have a problem with it, right? I'm proud of my pole. I'm proud of like what I do, but I would love to at least be able to introduce myself to some of my neighbors before that's shared about me. I would love for them to just know my name. And unfortunately, I didn't get that opportunity because of this person. And it was very disappointing that there were these ideas about me as a mother because of this sport, this art form, whatever you want to call it. It's a lot of things to a lot of different people, but because I chose to engage in this form of activity for myself, that it labeled me a certain way. And my sexuality before I got to even introduce myself to my
mhm.
neighbors, and that was really disappointing.
No, I agree. I agree. I think like people don't understand that like pole is just part of our life, right? It doesn't define us, just like mom doesn't being a mom doesn't define us. But there are parts of you that you want to introduce, about yourself to others when you feel like you want to, you know and so I understand what you're saying, like I always test the waters, and it's not like because I'm ashamed of what I do, and I also understand, and I think like as in general, pole hobbyists, we sometimes forget that pole will always, whether we call it a sport, whether we call it an art, whether we call it dance, whatever we want to call it, pole will always, always, always be tied to its stripper background, strip club background, sexual, background. And to be honest, if we're all honest with ourselves, nobody walks into a pole studio saying, "Ooh, I want to try Chinese pole. Oh, I'm gonna be the best aerial gymnast out there." We don't use that language. We walk in there because we're curious. And we might tell all our friends, "Oh no, it's just for fitness. Oh no, I'm just doing this for exercise." But we're there because we're like, I want to see what that's about, and there's nothing wrong with that. We all have to come to terms with that. I know I did, like I said, being back then, being a wife, and then not knowing how my then husband was going to react, not knowing how my family was going to react. And 10 years ago, it definitely wasn't the same, you know, uh, the same views. It was more like, "Oh, she's trying too hard," like,
Mm-hmm.
why doing that, like that was the attitude that I got. But like we still have, like, pole still has that sensual connection, and people are always going to be uncomfortable about it, and I think us hobbyists should go into it knowing that and being prepared for that. And I think sometimes we forget that. We want to say, "Oh no, 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 that's not what I do." No, yeah, that's what we do. That's why we're here. Like, we like
Yeah.
that.
I think that's a really good point, and that's something that I've been grappling with a little bit lately because I know what brought me into the pole studio, just like you said. I was curious, right? And when I look at the way I move now, like someone told me that I was a sexy dancer, and for a while I was like, well, no, I think I'm like silly sexy. And then finally I came to terms with, no, no, I'm a sexy dancer. Like, let's be real. I might have a smile on my face, but that's because I'm enjoying it. Like,
Oh my God,
but
I'm exact same. I'm a silly sexy. Yes. Oh my God, that's so great.
right, you like put that little qualification on it because you're not ready to like truly own it. And it's like a journey to get to that point. And then I was thinking about it a lot, and it's interesting that you brought up the point of like whole doesn't define us, but it's such an addicting
Mhm.
activity that it starts, at least for me, it starts to become all consuming. And uh there was something I was talking about with one of my friends where she was saying that, not everyone she said consent is important, and you have to make sure that you get consent from that other person that you're forming that relationship with
Uh-huh.
before you launch your sexy dancing at them, right?
Oh, that's
um
true.
yeah, and I was like, oh, that's nice. Like, I'm certainly not going to censor myself, but yeah, like if someone doesn't like ask for that from me, like, right,
Hmm.
like I'm not going to throw my ass in their face. Like, my male cousin doesn't follow me on Instagram. I completely understand why. He doesn't need to see that. He doesn't want to, and that's okay. Like, we still have a good relationship. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, but I think it's interesting too that uh, we there's a lot of different ways that you can approach pole, and yes, it's sexy. Sometimes other people look at pole and they see that uninhibited movement, and to them that's sexy.
Mm-hmm.
And you might be doing some really dramatic piece in your mind, and it's reading sexy to them because the only place that, let's say, a man sees that kind of uninhibited movement is in the club.
Hmm.
And it is what it is. Like, you might think you're being like super contemporary, and they're like, that is hot.
Absolutely. I mean, I've told some of the younger generation dancers that are like, "Oh no, I came into this as a sport." Yes. And you have every right to make it what you want. Nobody should take that from you. Absolutely. But again, we have to be aware and respectful of the fact, you know, conscientious of the fact that that is still very tied to it. Like
Hmm.
I said, I've told a couple of the younger dancers, like, "Baby girl, like, nobody cares if you can do a spatchcock. They think you're pretending to be a stripper." You know,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and that's, I think a lot of the newer dancers, they don't have that recollection of that horrible hashtag that was going around for a while, and just how painful it was to the pole
yeah,
community. I feel like for the most part we've gotten past that, not I
right.
hope, but
It, I think it's still there. Even on the UPA page,
oh, really?
I had to, yeah, like we had to address someone saying something very like, oh, this is, we're trying to get away from the stripper, which she said like, I can't remember her exact words, but she was like, it's a sport and we're trying to get away from this. And you referencing a post we had posted, you're not helping. And it was like, wait, what? Like, it makes me sad that we are losing the history of it, because like none of the first clubs were opened by non-strippers. Do you know what I'm saying? Like they're the ones that opened this. They were the ones teaching it because nobody else knew how to do it at the time. Or when the first YouTube videos started popping up, those were all done by strippers. And yes, people learned from them and have evolved, but if we take that away, we're only like taking our history away, you know? Um, like if you really wanted to be an aerial artist, you would have gone to a circus school, and those still exist. Those are still like there. If that's where you want to go with it, you can, but you deny like the and be disrespectful about our stripper history. Like I think we only hurt ourselves. Plus, too, it makes us so not fun.
Exactly.
Like
I
it's
feel
less.
like anytime someone's trying to get saying like we're trying to get away from that, that's someone that is not looking to be inclusive, and that's someone
Yeah.
that does not appreciate the diversity of the pole community. And for me, I certainly uh, don't necessarily represent a lot of different parts of the pole community, but I will say I am a mom, and it is very hard to walk into a pole studio as a mother at this point now where we are in pole, and the sport, the activity, the hobby, whatever you want to call it, it's ruled by 20-year-olds, and
Oh.
you ask yourself, do I have a place here? And
Mhm.
if I'm asking myself that when I look like this, like I can't imagine what other people are asking themselves. You know what I mean? Like, do I belong here? And the reality is yes. The answer is yes.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. I agree. Like what made it at the very start, and then what makes it still so like juicy now is that we are such an eclectic group of people. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously, like you look around and you can find someone who's something different from you. You can find someone who's just like you. You can find someone that has a completely different story. And that's what makes it like, so amazing, you know? And going back to what you said about it becoming addictive and becoming your life, I think it's the people too and the community that we build that makes it so addictive. Like 10 years ago, if you would have told me this will become your lifestyle, I would have never believed it. If somebody would have told me you're going to be sitting on a Zoom being interviewed for a,
Whatever this is.
like, or you're going to run a page, or you're going to do this, or you're going to compete, or you're going to do all that, I would have been like, no, I'm just here because I'm curious, like, I don't even know if I'm going to tell my husband, and then like, look now, like he's gone, but Paul is still here,
Men are temporary, pole is forever.
Yeah, that's why like I said, like when I realized like pole is my main relationship. This is my relationship. It's a love-hate situation sometimes, So yeah,
Yes.
yes, exactly.
So what went into your decision then to acquire the UPA page? Because it was run by Anne Marie, right?
Yeah, yes. She started it. She and the UPA page were really one of like the forerunners to expand the community. Back in the day, again, a lot of people don't know the history. Back in the day, if you wanted like pole news or find new dancers or, watch the different competitions that started popping up a few years into pole being a hobby, you had to go to UPA. United Pole Artists was it. They were streaming on their website long before we had Facebook Live and IG Live and all the lives. They were taking care of that. And so Anne Marie in 2020 got to a point where, her focus on things had switched a little, changed a little, and her life was just changing. Um, and she was all like, I don't have the energy or the care to put into this page, in this brand, in this name. And so she was actually going to get rid of it. She was just going to like put it to rest. And my friend Bree, um, heel clacks and flapjacks on Instagram. We talked about it and it was like, we were, she's danced a little longer than I, and we were like, oh my God, we can't let UPA go. Like, this is history. This is a cornerstone of where a lot of things took off from, like we just can't let it just go away. So we approached Anne Marie and we sat with her or through Zoom because it was 2020. And yeah, like she had a couple people offer to take over and she chose us because we were women, we were pole dancers, we'd been in it for a while, we knew the history of the page, and she felt we were like the most inclusive, of everyone she had talked to, I guess, or maybe I'm not sure about that part, but she just felt she was leaving it in good hands with us. So that was an honor in itself. And running it has been, again, it's a love-hate relationship, it's very stressful because you don't want to like disappoint people, and I never thought that I would care not to disappoint people that way. But it's social media, so people love the likes and stuff, and when we find a dancer and we want to share their art or their posts with them, it's always like very stressful that other people are receptive, that people are welcoming, you know our goal is to really be a platform for everyone and to feel like, hey, look, you can be spotlighted. You don't have to have an account of 50,000 plus and have the latest trick. Like we want to celebrate everything about pole. Sorry. We want to celebrate everything about pole, like your first invert to like the best competition piece we've ever seen, like
I love
that's
that. I do love that there is so much diversity on the page. I remember being a baby polar and I stumbled across the UPA page. This was years and years ago. And it was a photo of, I'm pretty sure it was Brandon Grimm. And he was like staring at the camera. It was just a photo because we just shared photos then on Instagram, right? And he was just staring at the camera and he had on these amazing like high heeled boots. And I think he had this like almost like peacock ensemble going on. And I had like just started pole and I saved like I did like a screenshot and I saved it to my phone as like inspiration, like the confidence, like the drama. And I was like, that's it for me. That is pole for me right there. Like, so it was UPA has always been incredibly special. I love the stuff they're doing, and I love what you guys are carrying on in legacy because you guys recently did uh like a focus for a month, or maybe I say recently and watch it was 5 months ago. Um, and you did like sexy style dancing, right? Or no, you it was exotic, right? Is that the correct?
no, we
Like
did sexy roots. We called it
sexy
the
roots. That's what it was. Sexy
uh-huh.
roots. Sorry, I'm
Yeah. No. Sometimes,
learning.
but we did too.
And that was really fun. I loved that and that's what I loved about it too. You called it sexy roots because you were tying it back to what it was without marginalizing it, without putting it in a way that would hurt some members of the community. I really liked that.
Thank you, and that means a lot because that's the thing. Like whatever we do, whatever we focus on, we don't want to exclude anyone, but sometimes we do want to highlight something. Like one of the main things when we took over, and we talked to Anne Marie about it because we shared our ideas with her, and one of the main things that for me personally, being Latina, was like, hey, sometimes I feel like there's not even enough focus on Latin dancers. Now we have a way to do this. And, my friend or my business partner, Bree, she was like, oh, you know what? Spooky season is the best time of year. We share posts, but it's not a big focus. Let's focus on that, And of course, everything else, we want to make sure people don't feel like you have to have a certain body type or have certain tricks, like just the best tricks. Of course, we're going to include tricks because some are amazing. You just have to share. But also to someone with absolute wonderful flow. We want to feel like we want them to feel like there's a space for them, or if they're telling a story, just costuming, everything. Like we're constantly looking for everything and anything, Um,
Yeah.
yeah, just like be a platform for everyone because everyone has a story. And again, I think that's the beauty of pole. We all have a story, you know?
I completely agree. And I think it's important too when, someone who is thinking about pole, because, right, you get curious and you stumble across a page like that and you see someone who looks like you or someone who's doing something that you think you can do. You probably can't because it's harder than it looks, but,
Right.
right, but you think that's accessible to me. And I think that's so important because when obviously the cult of pole, right? You're trying to convince all your friends to join.
Yeah.
And so I'll tell my friends, yeah, you got to try this. And they're like, oh, I got to get strong first.
Hmm. The biggest
No, you
myth,
don't.
the biggest myth of all.
Right.
Like
Like,
that's wrong doing it.
exactly. And I'm like, hey, look, if you don't want to make like feeling good in your body or fitness like a priority, that's totally fine. But if you really think that it's a strength issue, like it is not about strength. We build it into you. And I have no desire to ever flangy. And
Yeah.
so I don't need that kind of strength because I don't want
Hmm.
to do it. It's okay if I just want to body wave around a pole, or maybe I want to try flexed feet contemporary stuff. Like I can do that. You don't need to start pole with the intent of, and we end at Fonji. Like,
Right. Exactly. Exactly. There's no degree in pole. You don't have to check off every single list, which is also too part of the exciting thing. Like as soon as you start, you want to do it all. You want everything. You want all the tricks. You want to be there 24/7. You don't ever want to take a break. And then that's the exciting part. That's the part that gets you hooked because it's like, okay, I'm fine just doing this, like as more seasoned dancers, I'm fine just doing this. And then you're like, no, I'm not. I want to try something else. I want to push myself a little more. I want to try harder. Like that's the beauty of it.
so is that kind of what happened with you? Like, how did you decide to start competing? Because that is a commitment. As a mom, that is a huge time commitment.
It really was. I think it was one of those things of like, okay, what's next on the list of things I thought I would never do, you know? And competing, of course, was, because by then I had performed, and done this and done that. And so I was like, okay, let me compete. And I also knew just from having been around people who had competed that the process is almost even better or more important than the actual day of the competition. You know what I'm saying? Because it is a commitment. And I remember I told my kids, I sat them down. By then I was divorced, and so I sat them down and I said, I want to compete, and it's gonna be a lot of time, a lot of commitment from mommy. Like, are you guys behind me? And they were both very like, yes, we want you to compete. We want you to do something like this. They were very excited. And then I went to my ex-husband and I told him, hey, this is my plan. I didn't ask him. I told him, I'm like, this is what I'm gonna do, which means you're gonna have to you know, I might not be around that much on the days that I don't have to pick them up and do all that. You might be on your own more. We have a very good parent co-parenting situation. So it's very fluid. We don't go like, oh, these are your days. It's
Oh, that's nice.
yeah, we take care of our kids. So I told him I'm going to be focused on this. And it was really an amazing experience to share with my kids, you know. Um, like I said, they were there for practices. There were Saturday mornings where they had to drive to the studio and sit there for 2 hours while I was training, with my coaches and everything. They were there for my our mock trial. Like I remember, and my son saw me like he needed to go to the bathroom. And so he like comes into the studio area because it was behind, right? And he saw me in my heels and the outfit that I wore to competition. He was like, whoa, mom, like in a good way. Like, I've never seen you like this. And it was just like the cutest thing. Our dining room table was like my craft station while I glittered my shoes and bedazzled my top and did all this. And they were just absolute complete troopers. And it was such a great experience to share with them. And then I did place first. And so they were very big on me hanging my medal along with theirs, you
Oh,
know? And
I love
so
that.
I know it still hangs in our home. It's still there. Like, they're different metals in mine. Um, and so, yeah, like I think having them see me go through that too was it. I mean, it's amazing. I think to be that kind of example for your kids, because like one day maybe my daughter's going to have to stop dancing and my son's not going to play baseball anymore, and it's like, look, you can still continue your passions, you know, well into adulthood. It doesn't have to be your money maker, because that's the other thing too. I think our society, you know, places a lot of, if you're not making money, then it's not worth it, on a lot of like passions and activities and hobbies. And so they see me. I don't make money off most of the stuff I do. I mean, here and there, like, the shows I dance for tips, but it's not like that's my livelihood. And so for them to see that this is something that means so much and I'm still doing it, I think is a great example for kids,
I
you know?
completely agree. And you're showing them that there's rewards, like you said, other than money. And you're also demonstrating a discipline and commitment to something that you're passionate about. I think that helps because, uh, you know, oftentimes we tell our kids, like, hey, you made a commitment to this sport. You can't quit mid-season,
Yeah.
but they've never seen you dedicate yourself to something. And then when the going gets tough, like what happens, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing that you made your competition like a family activity. That is phenomenal. My daughter keeps saying that she's going to create like artwork for this little show here on Canva. It's so cute. And I mean, one of these days maybe I'll let her, but I've kept it from her, and now I'm wondering if maybe I should invite her in because she's very interested, and she wants to help, and she wants to be a part of it. And what a better way to like strengthen the family bond.
Oh,
But
absolutely. Absolutely. Like I don't think, well, my daughter for sure. My son, I think he might remember our first home before I got into pole, but I don't think they remember a time where it wasn't part of our life, like when they were little, we live in I have an apartment now. So my pole area, which is like right next to me right now,
Mhm.
it's what should be like the dining room, kind of thing. And they used to say, like, they don't call it the dining room or the living room, they call it the pole room, you
Yeah.
know? And we just happen to have our dining room to the side of that, and then the TV and our couch to the other side. It's like, it's very part of our life. Even like competition, um, they were very much involved in that. But shows, they've come to tech runs with me. My daughter came to an audition one time. I had this audition scheduled, and she got sick, and so I was like, "Can she sit in the lobby?" And they were like, "Sure, no big deal." And she came, and they left the door open to the pole area because they were like, that way you can hear. They were being considerate of me having a child there, right? And halfway through my audition, I look over because, like I said, the door was open, and I see, and she had crawled you know, to the door, and she was sitting there watching me.
Oh,
Oh my God. Like, this is the best day ever.
I think too, a lot of times, whether you're doing sexy style dancing or whatever dancing it is, there is something that it feels incredibly powerful about being able to lift yourself into the air or to dance, with such confidence. And I think like a lot of that sexy style, it is confidence, it
Mm.
is empowering. And so, your kids see their mom being confident and powerful, like that's
Mhm.
inspiring to them to see a woman taking up space, I think is,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I think, like, I'm sure you have too. A lot of people have asked me, well, how do you think this is gonna like influence your daughter or your son, or how it affects them? And aren't you worried you're like, you know, already, showing them sexualized, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, if anything, I think it's actually showing them an even better, responsibility of your sensual sexual side, like I said, that one time when my son saw me, he was like, oh my God, because he had never seen me. I'm not dancing here especially when they were younger and little, I wasn't here dancing in heels and, pasties. They would see me in shorts and, a tank top. And so, especially my daughter, I'm showing her that you get to pick and choose how much you show someone, and it's all up to you. And I'm always in control, like I really doubt that my daughter and our daughters will be the girls that are talked into sending inappropriate pictures to a little 16-year-old boy. You know what I'm saying? Like they're gonna be like, no, I I don't have to, you
I
know?
Yeah, I could not agree more. Because I think what happens is uh, there is a bit of a taboo around the idea of a woman owning her sensuality, right? It belongs to dad, and then when she gets married, it belongs to her husband. And when
Mhm.
you engage in something that is inherently uh, feminine and very sensual, and it's not for someone else.
Mhm.
It's for you and what the way you want to express yourself. That's very taboo. And I think that frightens people quite a bit. Oh, you're going to get me all riled up here. But yes, I think it's really important. It's important to show your children that, you're a strong woman in yourself. You didn't just get married because that's what you do, right? It's so important to me to show that. So I completely agree 100%. And I think it has, like you said, the opposite effect. When I first installed the pole in the house, I remember my husband said to me like, "Oh, I don't know if this is a good idea if we like to put it right here." And I said, "Well, look, it either goes right here and we normalize it or we take it down. We're not going to have something taboo in the house. Like that's not going to give the right effect. That's not the message we want to be sending to our daughter." And he was like, "Okay, you're right. We're normalizing it." And ever since then, like no issues.
Yeah.
Except, of course, it's not my pole. It's their pole.
I was gonna say that's the other thing too. Like, I mean, I'm sure yours did it too. Like they climb, their friends come over and they all want to climb it. Like, they don't seriously see anything weird about it, like I think my son was like, oh, he must have been like 7 and he had a play date. And like one of his friends saw it and he was like, what's that? And my son was all like, you mean your mom doesn't have one of these in her house to stretch? Like to him, it was like, you're the weird one. Your family's the weird one, not mine, like, and like I said, I think every single child that has ever come into our home and saw it, all they want to do was try to climb it. Like they're like, oh, I know what that is. They're like, okay.
Exactly. Every time my daughter has friends over, that is the first thing they do. They see that pole and they're like, "Can I go on it? Show me the hardest thing you can do." And I'm like, "No, I'm not warm. I'm not showing you the hardest thing I can do." And they're like, "Will you lift me? Will you do something for me?" Right? And I'm like, I should have a career as like a children's coach now because I've
Yeah,
spotted numerous little girls through like, their first little invert or something.
right, right, exactly. It's play when you think about it. Like there's always a pole in a playground. Kids just automatically want to like spin and climb and do all this. And I think that's the other thing too that we forget about pole. Yes, it's sexy. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it's a fitness. Yes, it makes us strong, but it's also play. It's very playful. You know what I'm saying? Like you're literally climbing a playground pole, just like you did when you were 4. And you fall and you roll around and you do cartwheels and you do, tumbles. And it's very much playful because sexual energy is supposed to be playful too, you know? So,
Exactly.
like it's very much keeping us young and more like it's more, like towards youth and not youth, but childhood, and we just put all these other layers to it, because like I said, it is sensual, it is sexual, but at the heart of it is play, you know.
Well, and when you look at I don't know what your day job is, but part of my day job, I look at how we create high functioning, high performing teams of people. And one of the biggest recommendations you get to either create a culture of high performance or get someone to be a high performer is to introduce the concept of play, because with
Yes.
play comes creativity. And so you
Yep.
take that time to play in your pole studio or play, with a pole, and it allows you to be more resilient and more agile and to better face life's challenges that are outside of the pole studio. And there are a lot of challenges that I face as a parent.
Oh, absolutely. I've always said it. Once you find your flow in the studio, you take it everywhere else with you. And I totally agree. My job is in an office. It's very like, let's get things done, you know. Um, and I think having this creative outlet keeps my creativity going. I take it to the office and I'm able to problem solve or come up with better ways, because it's that whole thinking outside the box, that whole,
Hmm.
oh, push boundaries, like, oh, it's always been this way, but why? Let's try it this way. You know what I'm saying? And I think all that, I think who I am in all aspects of my life does come back to like the pole dance and what it's done for me. And also too,
Exactly.
I've always said, like, I think being a mom makes me a better pole dancer, and being a pole dancer makes me a better mom, because that it goes back to that same thing, like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to parent because everybody else has done it. But why? Like, let's be creative. Let's push boundaries. Let's find different ways. Let's think outside the box. So,
Exactly. I love that. I love that, the poll makes you a better mom and you're a better mom, because you poll. Like I think that's fantastic. And I mean I wonder too, like how, like there are some times where I get overwhelmed because, and I'm sure you go through the same thing, or you have a similar schedule to mine, so you're working like a 9 to 5 kind of job. And then you have your responsibilities to the kids. So you're doing drop off, pickup, or arranging for daycare and activities, and
mhm.
you're managing that calendar. You're managing it with your partner or your co-parent. And then on top of that, you've made some commitment to either compete, or you've got commitments going on with your pole obligations. Like, so for me, I teach a couple times a week. Do you teach?
I don't. I don't.
Okay. You
I
have the
have,
UPA page.
yeah, and I have my instructor certification. It's just sitting there for now.
That's
you know?
okay.
Yeah,
That's
one day.
okay. But you have all of this, and sometimes it's like, how do I fit it all in? Like with what I want to do. Like if like let's say I'm going to perform, I know I
Mhm.
have to plan time to practice on top of what I already have going on that week, and not get injured, which, this past year for me, there's been a lot of like coming to Jesus for recognizing that I'm not 20. I'm not 20 and I can't treat myself like I'm 20. And
Yes.
sometimes I'm like, how do I do it? How do I balance all of it? I mean, so I'm how do you balance all of it?
I totally agree with that. Like, it always feels like you've got 10 things on your plate. And I will say, on top of all that, I also try to date.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, I try to date. And the first thing that goes out the door is the dating. I'm not going to lie. The first thing that goes out the door is dating, because I always say, oh, I'm ready to go out and dedicate myself to finding a partner. But then it's like, to go on a date, it means I have to give up my Wednesday night class. That's not going to happen. Like, I don't think if this guy's worth it yet. It's like, but yeah, like, I think, first of all, I think as a mom, we have to remind ourselves that we deserve time to ourselves. Like, that's the first thing in finding balance. There are absolutely some things that we can't get around. I have to go to work Monday through Thursday for 10 hours. I have to sit in that place for 10 hours. Um, and of course, there are evenings when I have to pick up my kids. But I also think that then the time that is allowed for us to dedicate to ourselves, we don't have to feel the guilt of giving it away to others. That's our time, you know. Um, and I think as a mom, no matter what type of mom or what you do as a mom, like, you always have to get used to feeling guilt and like you're not doing a good job. Like, that just sits with you at all times. Um, So, like, and so taking that time to be selfish, I think is probably your first step in finding that balance, you know. Um, and really, like, I don't know, like, I think especially after COVID, I, again, sharing this experience with my kids, I realized, like, a lot of times we do things because we have to do them, or we should do them, or it's the thing to do, or we've just gone out of habit to do them. And with COVID, when everything was taken away, we used to have discussions of, like, what do we really miss, you know? And to be honest with you, we've wiped, as a family and as an individual, we've wiped our plates clean a lot. Like, what is it that we love? My daughter loves dance, I love pole, and my son loves baseball. So familial obligations, we don't have to if we don't feel like it. Friend invites me to something, I love you, but I'm just not feeling it today, or I don't want to do that, or I don't want to skip dance class. You know what I'm saying? Um, and I think those are even more ways to find that balance. I don't
I
think
love that.
we'll ever find emotional and mental balance, because there's always something, like, you're at pole class, you're thinking about, like, oh wait, this weekend this is what I got going. You're sitting at work, you're thinking, okay, what kind of choreo do I want to do for this upcoming performance? What song should I be? You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always thinking about the other thing while we're doing that one thing, you know?
Of course, and we can't help that. And if it was something other than pole, it'd be the same way too. Like
Yeah.
that's just it, they did what is it that study that shows that like women are naturally constantly multitasking in their minds, whereas
Oh,
men like literally have a nothing box in their
yeah.
brain. I completely agree, and I think it's so important about setting boundaries. I know for me, when I get overwhelmed, the first thing to go is laundry.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I'm just not gonna do laundry. And like of all the things, laundry is probably the easiest. I mean, the folding and putting away is a pain in the butt, but like you could throw laundry in and have it run, and I could go and like I could go train because I have a pole at home while I'm
Mhm.
doing laundry. But for some reason, when I get overwhelmed, it is laundry that goes. I
Yep.
don't know why.
Yep. I mean, and you have to have your, like, you have to have your little outs. I agree with that. Like, for me, it's always been cooking. You know what? I probably should be shamed at how often my kids and I eat out. But when I'm working until 5 p.m. and I got to get him to practice by 6, and then after I drop him off, I got to run over and pick her up from her practice because her dad dropped her off earlier. And then she and I are sitting there for like 30 minutes. And by the time he's done, we're coming over. I'm not going to start cooking at 8 p.m.
Yeah,
So,
no.
or little cheats, frozen
Hmm.
our saviors, But I think we all do. We all have to have our little outs, and that's not even anything to do with pole. I think that's just as mom, like, find that sanity and that balance, like you said, like, you know.
I think that's a good thing you bring up too, like having those little outs because, the response to that you're going to get most of the time is, well, you should plan ahead and just be organized. And it's like, please, like I do my best to be organized, but when you are parenting like two wild things, like shit happens. You gotta ride with it, and just let like it's 8 o'clock. We're doing frozen dinners, or we're going through drive-through, and we're gonna pick the most nutritious thing we can find.
And sometimes we don't. Sometimes eat every just eat. Like, I just don't need you to be hungry right now. Like,
Exactly. Exactly. Man, I completely agree. That is just, I don't know. The world of parenting, the world of mothers, we're always going to look at each other, and we like to say that we support other women, and I feel that poll really helped me kind of recognize like there's enough spotlight for all of us to shine. But it's
mhm.
still kind of sad when like I run into other moms that like they don't share that sentiment. And
Yeah.
so they're going to be the ones going, well, like I had this one, she came to my house and she said, I follow your Instagram videos, and you've this was a few years ago. She's like, you're always talking about the mess that's in the background of your videos, and I never saw it, but standing here now, I see it. I was like,
Oh, okay.
Thank you. What do you say to that? I was just like, thank you.
You know what? I will say this. Obviously, I have a lot of, like, non-pole moms, And I had something similar. And I was going to say, there's nothing to say other than either thank you or, yeah, you know what? I've chosen not to stress about the little things. You know what I'm saying? Like bring it back to them. Because I think a lot of times people bring up stuff about you when they're really trying to figure out how they feel about it for themselves. Like a couple of years ago, we went to a tournament and we do tournament life all the time, baseball. So we're sitting there and I walk out to the pool and I'm in a two-piece bathing suit, like
Yeah.
all I own. I don't do one-piece bathing suits, then you get funky tan lines, right?
Yeah.
So I walk out and I didn't necessarily expect all the moms to be in two-piece bathing suits, but I was shocked to be the only mom in a bathing suit. Like nobody else was in a bathing suit to go swimming. Like
Yeah.
everybody was fully dressed. And I'm like sitting there going, okay, this has gone from a little awkward to super awkward, right? Because I'm in, little jean shorts and my bikini top, and like I take them off and and now everybody's like fully dressed. So like, okay, this is so awkward. Now, mind you, half the dads are in the pool playing with the kids, right?
Right. They
And
can
so
be naked. It's okay.
yeah, exactly. So then one of the mom came over and she was all like, she's all like, I haven't worn a bathing suit since I had my son. And again, what do you say to that? Are you giving me a compliment? Is this a put down? Are you offended by this? Like, what do you say to that? Like, are you judging me as a mom or whatever, right? So I didn't say anything. I was just like, okay, like you said, what do you say?
I'm
And
sorry for your loss.
yeah, exactly. And then she kept talking, and then I realized she was literally talking to me, but not talking to me. She's sitting there like, how would I feel? Like where would I get a bathing suit that I feel comfortable in? Where would I wear it to? You know what I'm saying? Like she was going through her own thing. And I will say on that team, the next trip we took, they weren't in two-piece bathing suits, but there were a couple of moms in bathing suits. You know what I'm saying? And it was like once one of us does it, then others feel comfortable doing it. And that's kind of like the experience I've had with like moms who are not into pole. Like when I did my competition, three of the moms on the baseball team that my son was on, like they had found out I was training for this competition because I started missing some of the games. And people were asking me, like, where you been? Like, oh, I haven't seen you in a while. And I told them, oh, I'm training for this pole competition. And so one of them asked me, like, oh, where is it? And I gave her the information. To my surprise, three of them showed up and they were blown away by it. They couldn't believe it. Like, even one said, she's all like, it was like a world that I didn't know existed. Like, because they sat there through part of the other competitions and they were like, there were all these women in just like these costumes and dolled up and doing this. And, like you could tell who was friends because they were all sitting together and this and this. And she's all like, it was like, a cheer competition, except you're all half naked on a pole. So, like it was something totally that was unexpected to them. So I guess I've been lucky in that most of the moms outside of pole that I come into contact, they seem to be okay with it, or they seem to be, I don't want to say inspired, but they're like, oh, well, this is interesting.
I love that. I love that they showed up and supported you. What a great group of women.
Oh my God, I cried because they didn't tell me that they were going to actually make it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
because the schedule, our sons were playing. They had a game that day. And so I wasn't expecting them, they had asked about it and been curious, and I told them about it, but I wasn't expecting them to show up. And then when I found out that they did, I was completely blown away. Like, oh, it was just like, oh my God, I am so grateful for that.
That's amazing. And I think one of the really cool things about that story about the swimsuit is you showed up as the best version of yourself, and then others follow suit. That's very inspiring, Elisa. I love that story. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing.
yeah,
So
for sure.
so do you have any advice then for any moms that are thinking about starting pole?
Um, I think I would say be gentle with yourself, be graceful with yourself. Again, like you have to give yourself that space to just be selfish, because the guilt's gonna come, the questioning's gonna come, like, am I skinny enough? Am I fit enough? Am I strong enough? Am I sexy enough? Am I being a bad mom for being selfish with my time? What am I doing here? Am I trying too hard? Um, and so I would say give yourself some grace. You're not always going to feel 100% confident, you know, and you are going to feel like a bad mom on that one day that, last minute your child doesn't want you to go, but you already paid for class and you want to go. More importantly than the money and the commitment, you want to go. Don't feel bad about that, like kids will survive, you know. Um, and also too, like again, have like there's no plan because life doesn't have a plan. You can plan on your schedule all you want, but yeah, definitely be a little like mindful of your time so that you like protect that time, Like if you say, I'm gonna go to the studio on Wednesdays at this time, that is your time. It's a commitment. Write it in your calendar as much as you do their doctor's appointments and your, work meetings, because that time is as important and precious as that. It's not like a whatever, I'll get to it if I get to it. Mm-mm. Make that time, make it a priority for you.
Exactly. It pays off in spades.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, what about, because we've been through the pandemic, and I don't care what anyone says, there were a lot of babies born because of the pandemic.
Yeah. Yes, 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 yes. In pole
So,
too.
yes. So, what advice would you have for pollers that are new moms or looking to become moms? Or maybe they're about to be moms?
I would say the same, definitely. Because like when I started, my kids were small, again, it goes back to the grace and protecting your time. Um, if you're looking to be a mom, I mean, if you're trying to be a mom and you guys are trying to have a baby, I mean, like, what perfect way to set the tone for a romantic evening, Like, I will say that I think incorporating your spouse or your partner or, uh, it's part of the fun too, you know, especially as a mom, like that is your time and that is something that you can share with your partner. It doesn't always have to be, tank top and shorts because the kids are around. Put the kids to bed. And then it's your time and you can dance for them, play with them, kind of thing. So definitely that. Um, and if for moms who have just become a mom, and let's say especially those who were pulling before and they went through the whole pregnancy thing and now they're back to it, they're trying to get back to it. Grace, I use the word grace and giving ourselves grace so much in so many different areas of my life because I don't think we do it enough. But yeah, like give yourself grace. You're not going to bounce back right after. Your body is different. You might lose the weight and you might still fit in those pre-pregnancy pants, but your body is still shifting and changing and it might not, it's going to fit into the pants, but might not fit the same way. And so let yourself go back on that journey and enjoy the progress like you did from the start. Don't expect to Fanji your first time back in the studio after you just gave birth to a human, So
That is really good advice. I do think, when, because I pulled while I was pregnant,
mhm,
pulled, and coming back to pull, I couldn't wait to come back, and I found that you don't bounce back. Your body just changes, and like you said, to give yourself grace and also an opportunity for your pole journey to take you in a new direction.
mhm, mhm.
It's a great reset. Like you said, enjoy the journey. I
Yep.
love that. Such good advice. And I
Yep.
think you talked about this earlier, but I do have another question for you.
Oh,
So, especially because you do so much for the pole community, what, as the pole community, can we do to support moms or parents? Because there are parents who pole.
mhm.
What can we do to support them on their pole journey?
I think that's already kind of like, how do I say it? Built in, you know. Even before there were pole studios in the strip clubs, there was always moms. Any activity where you get a large number of women specifically, and people in general, you're always going to have parents. Always. Like, I cannot think of a place where it would be completely exclusive of at least one parent somewhere, you know, no matter the age, no matter the stage in life, there's always going to be parents. And so I think, like I said, I've been slut shamed, but I've never felt that being a mom was excluded me from pole. It never
I
did.
agree. Yeah.
There's always been moms in pole. There's always been moms in strip clubs, So I think it's already built in. I guess maybe this is to advice for the new or parents that are getting into pole. You're gonna miss out on things too. Just as much as you can protect your time, it comes with it. Like, there are pole pole parties or events or classes that they just don't fit your schedule, you know. Um, and that's just part of the situation. You know what I'm saying? Like, not much that you can do about that. So as far as supporting parents, like I said, I think we already do it. I've never felt like Cole didn't support me as a mom. If anything, like, some of my friends are the most Pole friends without kids are some of the most amazing people that have helped me carry me on this journey of being a mom, first as a married mom and then as a divorced mom. But early on, I remember when I put my pole up in the first home, when my ex would be out, or maybe he took our son to somewhere or whatever, right? I'd have little pool parties because I couldn't leave because the kids were home. Or even now, as single parents, I've had, friends that come over, and we bring the event to my home because I got the kids in the back sleeping or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yes.
and then every time I've brought a child or one of my kids to, like a tech run or something, I have this beautiful picture of my daughter sitting on another dancer's lap. She had just met her. And, when it was my turn to go up and dance or get ready, I left my daughter here, and my beautiful friend Kate started talking to her. And the photographer, because they were doing promo pictures, took this beautiful shot of my daughter sitting on her lap because she
Oh,
wanted her right then and there. So yeah, I think as community we already have built that in.
yeah, that's a really good point about the fact that one of the things that makes Pole so unique is that community aspect. And with that community aspect, you get that sense of family. And how do you do family without parents, right? So
Right.
that is such a good point. I love that. Well, anything else you'd like to talk about with me? I find you so inspiring. I'm like, let's go, let's do this all day.
Oh,
I'm loving all the stories and advice too. You're very inspiring.
oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm forever humbled. I don't even consider myself that. I'm not, like, my account is small, like, I I don't do the latest greatest tricks. Even at my, most healthy, most strong, like you said, I've come to terms with the fact that I am not 20 years old. I've come to terms with the fact that I've had a couple of injuries and they just don't go away, you know. Um, but like, I love pole, and I love the people in it, and I think that does reflect sometimes. So I can talk about this all day because I love it. I love it. I
We may
think we
have
have
to we may have to chat again sometime
yeah,
if your schedule
like,
allows.
such a great thing going. It's such a great thing going. And even with its little pettiness and its little bumps and its little infighting and all that, overall, like, we are like this. Somebody said, I read it somewhere, and it said something like, we are this eclectic group of misfits that have come together for the love of
Yes.
one apparatus. And really, that's what it is.
It really is. And I hope that, as we move forward, I really hope I feel like it's there. Perhaps I'm the eternal optimist that we're going to continue to march like towards inclusivity, like knowing we've accomplished a lot. And as a community, we're just going to continue to march forward. Um, that is my hope anyway. Uh, did I hear right? This might be a random off question. Are you curating a showcase for PolCon? Is that you?
No, that's not me. That's a really good, amazing friend of mine named Jolene.
Oh,
She owns a studio down in Puerto Rico. Um, But yeah, no, I'm very excited for that. In fact, I'm hoping to sit down with her soon on the UPA page to chat about it.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
yeah, UPA, what we did 2 years ago during the pandemic was we celebrated Latin Heritage Month or
Hmm.
Latinx Heritage Month, because I do use the more inclusive word, you know. Um, but so we had like a whole month of that, and we decided to put together a show. So we did a Zoom show, and it was like all three American continents. It was North America, Central America, South America, and even the Caribbean. We had 10 dancers from like I think 9 different countries. It was amazing. So
That
yeah.
is so awesome. Is that something you think you're going to do annually?
We haven't done it annually, and when especially now that PoleCon is having something like that, like even though we're not connected to it, obviously we weren't involved with it, but like we fully 1000% support it, and I'm in love with it. I love it.
That's so awesome. That's very exciting. Well, I can't wait. I was really excited to hear that that was happening as well. So I can't wait to see it at PoleCon. So tell your friend that that's really exciting news. So,
Awesome.
well, thank you so much for chatting with me. I hope we get to do this again soon. I feel like there's more that we could talk about in terms of moms, and at least from our perspective, at least from what I heard, like the it's all good stuff. It's all good, positive stuff, and that's what you want. Like you
Mhm.
did, showing up, being your best self, and others will follow suit. So you're inspiring. I love you.
Oh my god. And I love you. Trust me, you are so inspiring. You have no idea how often I watch your videos. I don't think I tell
Really?
you enough. I try, but I don't think I tell you enough. I'm like, oh my God. The way you move is just gorgeous, fluid.
Oh, thank you. Sometimes I look at my videos and they're fine, but like we're our own worst critics. And I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, my pinky's separated from my ring finger and it ruins my lines.
That's
Or like,
hilarious.
it's just body waves. Everyone's doing body waves now. So I appreciate that. Thank you. It means a lot to me. So
Yeah,
I hope like I feel like, the whole I feel like pole is growing. It's always been growing, but it continues to grow, and we get more and more people that are curious, and they come in, and maybe they come in like we did, like already moms, but I see younger people
hmm
being interested in it, and they're going to go through different
hmm
phases in their lives that may or not include parenthood, but they're going to go through different phases in their life. And I kind of wanted to create something out there that, like, if you're in that moment of what am I doing, I'm a mom, like, I hope that that they could listen to something like this and know that they're not alone, that like that guilt is all normal, these thoughts
yes,
are normal, and you're not the only one in the studio that has gone through this. And maybe they'll feel that sense of community that they had before they became a parent.
for sure, for sure. Yes, I hope so too. And I'm glad you're doing something like this, because I feel like the focus on being a mom and in pole, again, comes and goes, comes and goes. There's been a couple of pages that were, about pole moms and stuff, but again, like, I think it's such a part of pole that you kind of miss, like we kind of overlook it, that it's a little community within itself. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like it's just built in, like, oh yeah, she's a mom or whatever. But yeah, we as a mom, you do go have a little bit of a different experience, and sometimes we forget we are our own little community, within the bigger community.
Yeah, I agree. Not that we're ever unwelcome. We're always
Right.
welcome, right? We're always welcome. It's more of battling that internal enemy that we have, that internal guilt, right? That says like you shouldn't be here. Your kid was crying when you left, going, "No."
Exactly. Or you've been sick all week and you're like, okay, you feel better? I'm gonna leave you with dad, with grandma, with whomever, older sibling. I'm out.
Right?
you know,
Sorry, I need to go shake my ass. Like you were just gonna have to deal.
exactly. It happens.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I hope that we get to touch base again soon.
For sure. Thank you for having me. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you.